I'm about ready to drag your fucking ass out here and whip you. You understand me? You don't do that to me. You don't do that to nobody.
Merry corruption, everyone. So a few days ago, I got an anonymous tip. And in my line of work, tips come in many forms. Sometimes it's as simple as a one-line email saying, hey, you should come investigate our chief, with basically no additional information. Like, what police chief? Where? When did he do the thing you want me to investigate? But sometimes I get tips that spell out every little detail about what's happening, and they've basically done all the heavy lifting already. I like those tips. But a lot of tips essentially amount to one-line pleas for help that have absolutely no pertinent information attached to them. And the tip I got a few days ago was basically that. Just one line saying that I should look into an interaction that occurred at a Hardee's parking lot in Stanton, Kentucky. Now, obviously, that's not enough information for me to look into anything. And I have so many different stories to follow that it's kind of hard for me to justify replying to a one-line email. But the truth is that some of the best stories can come out of the smallest tips. And for whatever reason, I decided to follow up on this tip and see if they could give me any tangible information to work with. And to my surprise, they replied with the exact information I needed to proceed with an investigation. They told me that the interaction occurred at around 1:30 p.m. on October 10th of this year, and that it involved a Kentucky State Trooper. That was all the information I needed to put in a FOIA request and see for myself what this person was talking about, so that's what I did. And what you're about to see is what I got back from that request.
I'm Shipper Miller with the State Police. Hey, man, we got a couple calls on you saying that you're driving reckless, driving pretty fast. And,
you damn right you were. Too, you motherfucker. See what you about to get your ass whipped. You almost caused us to wreck. You understand? 100 miles an hour. I'm the county judge and this is the deputy sheriff.
We're both deputies.
Now let me tell you.
I need driver's license, proof of insurance from you.
And you weren't the only one that almost caused us to wreck. All the way up here, 110 miles an hour on your ass. I'm about ready to drag your out here and whip you. You understand me? You don't do that to me. You don't do that to nobody. What's your hurry, man? Over 100? You come here of wrecking me and another car right beside of me. I'm deputy sheriff. I'm the deputy sheriff. I work with the sheriff.
What are we doing?
So the two guys that you see walking up on this driver and threatening to kick his ass are Executive Judge of Powell County, Edward Barnes, and who I believe to be Special Deputy Mike Kelso of the Powell County Sheriff's Office. I tried to confirm whether or not this was in fact Special Deputy Kelso by trying to call the Powell County Sheriff's Office, and here's how that went.
The person you called does not have voicemail. Person you called does not have voicemail.
They don't have an email address listed on their website either, so I wasn't able to confirm with 100% certainty that this is Kelso. But I am fairly confident that it is, and in fact the trooper in that video even says Kelso at one point. The point is that these are two county officials who are berating and threatening this citizen. Now we'll get to the criminal aspects of this in a minute, but let's get back to Trooper Miller because he's obviously very confused about what's going on, and so he decides to go back to his patrol car and contact his supervisor.
I don't know, he want to do now.
We're up here cussing at him. Somebody who's up there f***ing screaming at him. And I just stopped him.
437, signal 4.
Jimmy's 1012. He's up here f***ing screaming hell down. I don't know. I don't understand why he's doing that.
Man, he's a horse that does shit like that. I guess Jimmy Barnes call in.
Yeah, he's...
341 Morehead, 2098.
I pulled him over because Eddie was flashing his lights. And, I mean,
got some traffic here at
I didn't get no speed or nothing on him. I was just want to see if he was clear and stuff. But yeah, Kelso's here with him.
I think Kelso might be a deputy. Kelso, he can write him a ticket. I wouldn't write him one if I was you.
I'm not. I didn't get no speed on him. But already, I saw like, god dang. Like as soon as he was screaming at him like, "Hey, I'm gonna pull you out of this car, beat your ass." I don't want nothing to do with this. Because I didn't see him. First of all, I didn't really. Only reason I stopped him because Eddie called it in. I didn't get no speed on him.
They trying to make you look stupid about fingerprint in your truck, so I thought I was, get back in the car. I don't know. I don't know how to do it nicely, but yeah, I was just trying to pass by and get the hell out of there.
Yeah. Alrighty. He's clear. Everything's good. I didn't get a speed on him, so it's kind of hard for me to write a speed ticket unless you guys want to write it. It's up to y'all. I didn't. We was going to use his
Let me tell you,
LiDAR, but his LiDAR's dead, and I didn't get him on the radar.
he's coming here. It's not exaggerating. We were like this. We started passing another car, and we were like this. So he comes right in. Running 100 mile an hour.
You guys want to ride him anything?
Yeah.
That's up to y'all if you guys want to.
Put his ass up to jail for reckless driving and being stupid.
Where I didn't see it, it's kind of hard for me to ride anything, and I didn't catch the speed. So.
Yep. And the thing about it is, we wouldn't know, but there was probably 3 or 4 of them. Yeah.
Hey man, you all right? First of all, sorry about them getting out screaming at you. I didn't know they was going to be doing this. First of all, I wouldn't let them done that. I didn't expect it. So, what's going on? Why are they calling in on you? What's going on? You speed? Okay. Was you swerving in and out of traffic? What's going on? Where you heading?
Down to the road.
Okay. You're coming from, where's Morning View at?
Northern Kentucky. It's, Washington.
Okay. I'm not sure. They might be writing a citation. I'm not. Okay, because I didn't witness you do anything. I just stopped them because they called in a complaint on them. And I was going to see if there was anything going on. Let me see what they're doing.
Do you need anything else?
You guys want the rider? Or
Yeah.
You got any questions for me or anything?
Not at this moment. I mean, if they write me something.
Yeah. I think he's going through the guy in the lot there. He's a deputy here. And then the ball head dude is the judge executive here. He used to be a deputy. So both of them are law enforcement. I don't know if they're still law enforcement as of right now, but they were. Nothing for me or anything? All right, brother.
The body camera footage pretty much ends there with Trooper Miller getting back into his patrol car and leaving the scene. The driver was in fact issued a citation for speeding, but I wasn't able to confirm which department actually issued the citation. So after watching this video, I decided to do a little more digging, and I emailed Judge Barnes's office directly. I showed them the footage and asked if he would like to make any public statements about what happened. And to my surprise, the judge himself replied. And not only did he reply, but he gave me his personal cell phone number and requested that we have a call. So of course I took him up on that offer and I tried to call him that day. And of course he didn't answer. I was pretty sure that he had come to his senses and decided not to make a public statement to some YouTube journalist, but he surprised me again, literally this time, and called me back later that night. I wasn't quite prepared for this phone call because of how late it was, so I didn't have my notes in front of me or anything like that, but I was pretty sure that this might be the only chance that I get to actually speak to him, so I took the call. And this is the conversation we had. Well, do you want to just run me through your version of events for that interaction?
I was in my own personal car, and I was not on company time at that time, and that really doesn't matter. But I went to Cincinnati to pick up a reserve deputy from the airport. He was getting back on vacation. And on the way back on the Mountain Parkway, we had hit right at the Powell-Clark County line, our county. And I was passing this vehicle, and I was right up to pass the vehicle. And I was running probably about 80 mile an hour. All of a sudden, this car comes up, and he swerves right in front of me, and I don't know how he kept from hitting me and the other car. And I slammed on my brakes, had to go over in the median and come back up, and this car was traveling greater than 100 mile an hour. And so I called dispatch and I told him, I said, "You've got to stop this car." I said, he's going to wreck and kill somebody. And he scared me. I'll be the first to say he scared me, because I'm a retired paramedic and I've worked more fatalities on that road than I've got fingers and toes. So we tried to keep up with him. We barely kept sight of him, and
now, let's not gloss over this fact, because I think it's pretty important for analyzing Judge Barnes's behavior that day. The judge just said that he was driving 80 miles an hour down the Burt T. Combs Mountain Parkway, which has a speed limit of 70 miles per hour. He claims that the driver he passed was doing over 100 miles an hour and driving recklessly, but I think it's a bit hypocritical to blatantly admit to speeding as a public official and then go out of your way to rage out on the guy who's basically doing the exact same thing that you are, just to a higher degree. By no means am I attempting to justify the driver's alleged actions here, but the fact is that anyone who speeds is putting other people's lives at risk no matter how much they speed. That's the whole point of a speed limit. But then the judge takes this a bit further by admitting that they essentially engaged in an unsanctioned high-speed pursuit with this driver. And considering that they were on the scene within a minute of the trooper arriving, they must have been going pretty fast. How is engaging in a pursuit of a driver who you believe is traveling over 100 miles per hour in your own personal vehicle any different from what the driver was originally doing? I mean, by that logic, maybe the driver was engaged in his own high-speed, unsanctioned pursuit, and that would have justified what he did. It just makes no sense.
So anyway, state police and city police caught him at about 10 miles later up here at Stanton. I was scared. I was mad. Way I feel, I almost lost my life, and I almost lost a buddy's life. And during the trek up here, you can hear the reserve deputy telling the dispatch. Well, he's telling. I had him on speakerphone, telling, he about hit another car. He's going to wreck. He's going to kill somebody. And I was excited. I'm usually not a butthole and stuff like that, but I lost my temper. And do I regret it? I do. I do, because I'm not that type of person. It happened, and whenever he came to court, the reserve deputy wrote him a ticket, and whenever he came to court, I took him and his father in the office, and I apologized to him, and actually I helped him on the ticket.
Yeah, in what way?
Well, I talked to the county attorney for him to kind of go easy on him.
And what motivated you to do that if you felt as though he was, almost cost you your life and things like that?
I felt bad, about what I did. After I calmed down, I felt, because I don't talk to people like that, and I've dedicated my life to public service. I've been a police officer. I've been a deputy sheriff. I retired out of Winchester Fire Department as a lieutenant paramedic. I still volunteer for our fire department. I've seen a lot of stuff, and at that point, whenever this happened, I thought it was going to be one of those fatalities.
Right, but once he stopped, and the situation was kind of under control, I would say that any other citizen that was in your shoes doing what you did in that moment would probably have been arrested for disorderly conduct at the very least. I mean, obviously, that stretch of highway may very well be a dangerous corridor for traffic accidents, but road rage is equally as dangerous, and another aspect of safe driving. It
is, and I'll be, if we want to point fingers, the trooper should have stopped me. The trooper should have told me to go back over and sit down. It's his traffic stop. He should have. Why he didn't, I don't know. But I'm not throwing the blame off on him, because I jumped onto him. I jumped onto the boy.
So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Judge Barnes seems to be under the impression that it's Trooper Miller's fault that this played out the way that it did. I swear these guys are just like allergic to accountability. He seriously took the position that all of this ultimately happened because Trooper Miller failed to gain control over his traffic stop. But I'm pretty sure that there's a reason he's framing it this way. This is unconfirmed, but I have been told that Trooper Miller was actually the only one who faced any kind of disciplinary action for what happened that day, and he ended up being suspended for 4 days for not taking control of the traffic stop. Now, while I do believe that that is a legitimate criticism of Trooper Miller's conduct here, we can't just discount the fact that Judge Barnes and Deputy Kelso both identified themselves as county officials when they approached the vehicle.
I'm the county judge and this is the deputy sheriff.
We're both deputies.
That undeniably throws a political wrench in the spokes of this stop and puts Trooper Miller in a lose-lose situation. Either he can allow the judge to threaten this guy and ultimately get suspended like he did, or he could go against the judge and potentially risk losing his job. What the trooper elected to do here was the middle ground and essentially just try to remove himself from the situation without pissing anyone off, but that didn't work out either. What's even more ridiculous about this is that, in my opinion, taking over the stop doesn't necessarily end with just separating Judge Barnes from this driver. The trooper had just witnessed Judge Barnes threatening to inflict bodily harm on this driver. If we're conceding that the trooper should have taken over the stop, then we could easily just say that the trooper should have arrested Judge Barnes right then and there. But like I said earlier, we'll get to the criminal aspects of this in just a minute. And just to make it clear for you, I mean, the reason the trooper didn't do that is because you identified yourself as the executive judge along with a, sheriff's deputy. So, I mean, that created what could be perceived as, political hurdles for him to effectively do his job.
I've known that trooper ever since he started the force.
So that, that kind of justifies what I'm saying here is that he wouldn't feel privileged to be able to do that. He might feel his job is in jeopardy or something like that if he goes against you, No,
I disagree with that.
So you think that the Trooper Miller should have gained control of you, and that would have resolved it?
He should have. If he would have gained control of the situation, it would have stopped.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, the real thing is that the situation never should have happened. If you see a dangerous driver on the road, you don't have the authority just because you're a judge to threaten them or whatever. I mean, what you're supposed to do is what any other citizen is authorized to do, which is call the police, alert the authorities, and you go on about your day. You don't have law enforcement authority.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever lost your temper?
Oh yeah, of course, but I'm not a public servant.
Okay. So am I not a human?
Yes, but you're also a public servant. Yeah.
Well,
you're held to a higher standard than the public.
I somewhat agree, but I am human, and I feel bad about it. It would be different if I said, well, whatever. I do feel bad because I don't usually do that.
Imagine standing in front of a judge when you're charged with road rage or some related crime and asking the judge, what, have you never had a bad day? Having a shitty day is not an excuse for the way that Barnes behaved that day. How many times do you really think people have committed crimes and got out of it by saying, hey, I was just having a bad day?
And so, the question, so just because you're not a public servant, does it mean that you're okay to lose your temper?
Let me put it to you this way. If I had done what you had done, I would have went to jail. You didn't go to jail.
Well,
that's
actually,
the distinction.
Disorderly conduct is it's a misdemeanor. It's a citable offense. It's not an arrestable offense.
Well, I mean, we could say that. I mean, disorderly conduct is just the charge that came off the top of my head. I'm sure that when I do the legal analysis for this, I'll be able to name you a bunch of different charges that could potentially apply to that conduct. And the legal analysis has been done, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, Kentucky's menacing statute very clearly applies to the conduct here, because anyone in the driver's position would certainly have felt a fear of imminent harm, or physical injury in this case. And then there's disorderly conduct in the second degree, like I mentioned in the call, which covers engaging in violent or threatening behavior. This is a misdemeanor, and it can be cited, but contrary to what the judge said in our call, you can also be arrested for this charge, especially when you're actively threatening to do violence in the middle of an official traffic stop. We also have subsection C of Kentucky's harassment statute, which covers making abusive gestures or directing abusive language at someone in public. And here's the big kicker. Since the judge himself claimed that it was the trooper's failure to gain control of this traffic stop that ultimately led to this even happening, then you could easily make the argument that Barnes committed the offense of obstructing government operations, which clearly reads that anyone who, quote, impairs or hinders the performance of a governmental function by using or threatening to use violence is violating the statute. Now, you gotta ask yourself, why wasn't Trooper Miller's suspension accompanied by appropriate charges for both Barnes and Kelso?
Well, the thing about this, I will say this. I did mess up. I own up to my facts, and I'm not going to sit here and debate what happened. And if you want to run it, run it. Like I've told him, I apologize, but you can do what you need to do because you're going to do it anyway. So yeah,
of course. I mean, I wasn't.
And I'm trying to give you the respect to say, hey, this is what happened.
Yeah, I understand that, and this call is not intended to be a call of determining whether or not I run the story. It's really just a opportunity for you to speak your side. I'm going to run the story either way. But
make sure you put my part in.
Yeah, of course.
Because anybody that says they have not lost their temper is a liar.
I mean, you keep making this false equivalency, though, as if you are just some average person, and you're not.
I am an average person.
You're a judge. You're an executive judge. I mean, you hold a public office. You're not an average citizen. All right, I got to jump in here and clarify something real quick. So I've been referring to Barnes as a judge throughout this whole video. And while executive judge executive is his official title, he's not a judge in the judicial sense. In Kentucky, a county judge executive is essentially just the CEO with a legacy title. It's not a courtroom judge, and it's not a police job. The Kentucky Constitution basically treats this role as the fiscal manager of the county. The point here is that although Barnes does have some law enforcement experience, he's basically just the county's head pencil pusher. He has no law enforcement authority whatsoever.
Well, and the thing about it is, I have admitted that I did wrong. Mm-hmm. I'm not sitting here saying that I didn't do wrong. I feel bad because I did do something like that.
Well, what I'm saying, though, is that the excuse that, everybody gets mad sometimes doesn't really work for someone in your position, because you've been trusted by the public to do better than that.
Well, I tell you what, go on YouTube videos, and watch police pursuits, and see how many. Even I've got a Kentucky State Trooper that cussed a guy out. So does that make him wrong? He should have. That's okay for him to do it, but it's not okay for me to do it.
You're not a police officer, first of all.
I was.
But you're not now, right? You don't have law enforcement authority, right?
I'm sure. Nope, I sure don't.
Okay, so that's different. No,
it ain't. It's not. It's not different. Whenever it doesn't matter what area that you're in, whether you're a police officer, whether you're a firefighter, whether you're a janitor or whatever. So it means everything's okay. Everybody else can do it except an elected official.
No, what I'm saying is, if a police officer is engaged in a dangerous high-speed pursuit, which they have the authority to do, that would probably... I
had a deputy sheriff with me. Was
he on duty?
So does that make... A police officer's on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a
Well,
week.
no, that's not true. In not every state.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is. It is.
Okay.
Because yeah. Thank you, sir, and I appreciate you calling. I appreciate your interest, but you do what you need to do, and you have a good night. Thank you.
All right. Well. Push him just a little bit, and man, can't handle it. I didn't feel I was trying to be very accusatory. I was just, verifying the logic of what this guy was saying, and it just wasn't coming through. So he just hung up on me, and that was the end of our talk. But that's not the end of the story. So I reached out to a few of the more prominent members in Powell County just to poke around and see if anyone had any information about Judge Barnes. And boy, did I open Pandora's box. I don't want to go too deep into this just yet because I'm still in the process of verifying a lot of the information that I'm being fed right now. And I will be doing a follow-up video on this investigation once I can pin down the details and verify everything. But if you happen to be watching this video from Powell County and you're a Powell County resident who has something that they'd like to say about their county officials, then please send me an email at the email address on the screen now. Whether good or bad, I'd like to hear what the residents think of Judge Barnes as a whole and any other county officials that they'd like to point out. Alright, so I don't have a lot of final thoughts on this one just yet because I'd like to consider this an investigation that is still ongoing. But I will say that I think it's totally fucked up that Trooper Miller was the only person to receive any kind of disciplinary action for this whole thing. And yeah, there's an argument to be made that Trooper Miller deserved that punishment because Judge Barnes is actually right. Trooper Miller should have taken control of that traffic stop, and he should have arrested Judge Barnes and Deputy Kelso for one or all of the charges that I listed earlier. And I'm sure that's exactly what would have happened if the trooper hadn't felt that he was dealing with a perceived existential threat to his job with no clean way out. If a non-executive judge and a non-sheriff's deputy had done exactly what these two did, then they would have been arrested right then and there. No questions asked. And then you have to ask yourself the question of whether a man who threatens to beat the shit out of the constituents that he represents is actually fit to run a public office. And look, I get it. Everyone gets mad, especially at people who put other people's lives at risk. But if you're a guy who has decades of first responder experience, like Barnes claims to have, I'm sure one of the many disturbing things that you see throughout that tenure is the result of road rage. I mean, what if this guy had been a complete lunatic on a drug bender and just shot the judge in the face the moment he walked up to his car acting crazy like that? This is why literally every law enforcement agency in the country discourages road rage, and some states have even drafted laws specifically regarding road rage. And I find Judge Barnes's excuses to be completely without merit. And it's fucking ridiculous that Trooper Miller was the only one who was trying to do the right thing and the only one who got disciplined. I'm just going to keep digging and see where this story goes. Like I said before, I'll be sure to give you an update in a future episode. Thank you for being here. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that update episode. That's all I got for you today, ladies and gentlemen. Cheers.